thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I know what you're already thinking. Now, I'm sure I know these two people from somewhere. So to put your minds at rest, we're going to start with a quick video. So to give a little bit of context, myself and Brittany recently traveled to Lille for the largest Star Wars Unlimited tournament to date. We actually both made it to day 2, so we're in round 13 or 14 at this point in the quarterfinals, and amazingly, we're both picked to be on stream together. So this is a big moment in the quarterfinals, both us against each other. It's the third game. We're currently tied 1-1 going into the last phase of the game. And for those of you not too familiar with Star Wars Unlimited, I'm trying to get to 25 damage on Brittany's base. She's trying to get to 33 damage on my base. All I need to do is swing with 2 of my units to win. So let's go ahead and see what happens.
If I attack with this loop first here and restore 3, and then if you do that, you literally have a blue leader on the following action, and that is it. You will win the game. That will put it up to exactly 25, which is what we need for that energy conversion lab. He's going to swing into the 2 costs of being here, going for...
So instead of going into base, I go into a unit instead. Brittany ambushes in a unit, which gets defeated and deals 3 damage to my base. And then she does the final damage with a ping from her leader. So I had the win in the bag, but I let it slip in that last minute. Now, who in here has been in that position before, where we've got to a key part of a tournament, and maybe we've just missed something or misplayed, and that's our whole tournament falling apart from that point? Can anyone give me any examples where that's happened, if you would like to share with the group?
Had a tournament on Friday. It was a key forge tournament, so you have to forge 3 keys, and I was just about to forge the last key, but somehow he just pulled out so much amber and then stopped me from forging my last key, and then that was it. So that was it, literally the last move.
So last move of the game, so close to the finish line, and that he had the answers that he needed in that moment. Yeah. Anyone else have an example that they want to share? Because I will start picking on people if I need to. We'll go one more. You look like you want to share.
It's been quite some time, but it was a Final Fantasy trading card game tournament, and it was playoffs, and you have to deal 7 damage. It was 6-6, and I think I just I forgot about one ability to tap one opponent's blocker, which then I could have passed, but I just oversaw that, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so again, I think that's another thing that happens in these key moments. Sometimes we start to maybe overthink or start to question our decisions when maybe our initial thoughts might be the way to go. So thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be talking a little bit about psychological skills in trading card games. So my name is Miles Cassidy-Rice, and I'll be presenting with Brittany Cassidy-Rice. And to give you a little bit of background about us, so I'm a sport and performance psychologist registered with the Health and Care Professions Council in the UK. I'm also a certified mental performance with the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. So a lot of the work that I do is working with athletes and teams to get the best from them consistently in their performances. Now, recently, I got into a competitive trading card game. You may guess Star Wars Unlimited from that introduction. So I've started to enter into the competitive TCG scene and get my toes wet. And what I've noticed is there's actually a lot of crossover between mental skills that I apply with athletes and those that I see happening in and around the TCG. So we're going to be discussing a little bit about that today.
I'm Brittany Cassidy-Rice. I am a very casual TCG player. That was obviously not me in the video.
That was us.
I have a PhD in curriculum and instruction. I'm a teacher. I'm very much within the education field. I have experience designing digital and virtual educational workshops and different platforms and things like that. And I have recently become interested in the psychology within trading card games. I play Lorcana, but I don't play competitively at all. I just play it for fun, and I like collecting the cards. So we both are very interested in research, and I recently completed my PhD and did a research study in education. But Miles and I were talking about the psychological aspects within TCGs, and this is a very under-researched field. And so we decided to do an exploratory study where we were just kind of learning about different people's experiences. So we interviewed 10 competitive TCG players. Some of them had 1 year experience, some of them had up to 15 years experience within a wide range of games. The majority of the people that we interviewed played Magic the Gathering, a few played Star Wars Unlimited, and a couple played Disney Lorcana. Our participants took part in an interview, a virtual interview, where we just asked them different questions about some of the skills that they use, especially mental skills, when they're playing within that competitive environment.
Great. So some of the things that we found when interviewing these people, some of our initial findings suggest that there's quite a lot that happens within, the knowledge of the competitive environment. So within here, you've got things like your preparation for tournaments. So obviously, you need to know the meta if you want to do well in a tournament. So being able to research and memorize, what decks are going to come up in that tournament, what cards you might be coming up against, and also what patterns you might see. So not only do you need to understand your deck and what patterns of play and lines of play you might have within your own personal deck, but also those other meta decks that you might be coming up across and what patterns they might be looking for in their play. So being able to adjust on the fly and counter based on your understanding of the current meta. And also something that's known as getting in the flow. So this is something that I talk about a lot with athletes, but you may have experienced this in TCGs as well, where everything seems to be clicking, you see everything that's happening on the board, and you know exactly what to do. So that's something that's known as getting in the flow, and that's really important if you want to reach, your top performances. So there's certain skills that we can develop to encourage you to be able to get into the flow more consistently. We also noticed that there's a lot of demands when you're actually in that competitive environment. So you may start to experience, nerves. If we're going into a competitive tournament, there could be a lot at stake, especially if it's a large-scale tournament with top pricing there, right? Being able to be resilient in that as well. Sometimes things do go against us. There's a lot of RNG in trading card games. So we need to be resilient and still push through even when we're coming up against difficult situations. And also utilize support. So hopefully you will have the luxury of traveling to tournaments with friends and maybe family as well. Being able to tie in with those friends and families that you're traveling with, and decompress at the end of a round before you start the next round to really feel that support during the competition. Another thing that we found was staying composed. So emotions can be quite a big one, even if we would rather say that we don't have those angry moments. Some of us may get a little bit frustrated, let's say, at a certain turn of events. Also confidence. So I think we spoke a little bit at the start about confidence in decisions. Maybe we do have the correct answer, but we start to doubt ourselves, or just even confidence in our own ability. So having that confidence in competition is really important as well. And of course, focus. These are long days, potentially multiple days of long rounds, up to an hour in most TCGs really, where you have to stay focused and be able to make decisions on the fly. So that focus piece is also key. And then also an interesting one that came up was being able to adapt to the board state. So being versatile, we might have decided what direction we want to go. Our opponent does something and then suddenly we're like, oh, what do I need to do now? So being versatile and being able to adapt to what's happening on that board state is really important. Dealing with mistakes. Unfortunately, mistakes do happen. We're human. They're going to happen. So we need to learn how to be able to cope with those mistakes when they do happen. And then finally, acceptance. That's not to say, oh, I'm going to accept defeat when that does happen. But really, again, TCGs there's a lot of RNG, right? So sometimes we can do everything right with whatever cards we draw, but our opponent just has the answers, and there's not a lot you can do in those situations. So being able to accept those, learn from those situations, maybe have some ideas on how we might adapt our deck, those kinds of things to better prepare for our next tournament. And then obviously that cycle all comes through again. We go back to that preparation piece for the next tournament that comes up. So when it comes to developing mental skills, it's really important that we start to build awareness around, what mental skills might benefit us, what strengths we might already have, and what areas we might want to improve. So the first thing to do is to reflect on what mental skills we currently have and currently utilize well, and then identify which ones we might want to develop or to improve going forward, and then practice it. You know, it's just like any deck that you might build. You need to practice it to get comfortable with it and to be able to use it. Mental skills are the same. We need to be able to use those in the moments, and that only comes if we actually practice it beforehand. So I'm going to pass us back over to Brittany for a quick activity.
Okay, so we have some questions. Can you please scan the QR code?
Everyone has a phone in here, right?
Yeah, if not, okay.
We are recording.
We are
as well.
recording it, and we will share it.
No worries.
So yeah, if you join this, you'll be presented with a few different questions. Your answers will come on the screen, so hopefully you're okay with that. It's just getting you to think about the kind of TCG player that you are, because we want this presentation to be very practical. We want you to be able to take away some skills from it. So to kind of get you right in the right mindset, think about how you are as a TCG player.
And just give me a thumbs up when you're in there, and I can move us on. Okay, so you should see a screen. There won't be too much on there yet, but once we go on to the next slide, it will pull up a prompt. So I'll give you 5 more seconds, and then we'll move on. Let me know if you're having any tech issues as well, and I can do my best to fix it. Okay, so you can still scan up here if you're still going for it.
Okay.
It's still in the top corner, so don't worry.
So this first question is just asking you, as a TCG player, what do you consider your strengths, and what do you consider your weaknesses or your limitations? So for example, for me, I know I'm not good at TCGs because I don't put in the time and effort. I just enjoy them. So that might be a limitation for me, is I don't have the motivation to actually practice and try and be better at it. So just think about your own strengths.
Give us the strength as well.
And your, okay. As a strength, that's a little bit harder to come up with. I guess I would say a strength for me within the TCG game is I will enjoy it no matter whether I win or lose. I'm not going to get frustrated by it because I just enjoy playing it either way. So go ahead and think about your own strengths and limitations, and then they should pop up when you submit your answers.
Okay, so someone in here is experienced, very good at proactive decks, so likes playing aggro and combos, but maybe mid-range and control are some areas that could be improved. We've got good analytical skills, creative decks, limited knowledge about the meta. I will admit that's quite a difficult thing if you don't have the time to put in to keep up with. Spotting unique combinations, now that's an interesting one to come up, I like that one. But limitation, maybe finding time and opponents to play against.
Yes.
Nice one. So yeah, maybe that rehearsal piece. We've got card knowledge is strong, collector of the game. Limitation be being able to fully focus on one deck. Someone likes to play multiple decks and maybe not put the time and effort into one.
Second guessing, that's a big one. I do
Yeah,
that a lot.
second guessing responses and answers. Yeah, that's come up a few times already today. Someone doesn't like meta decks.
Planning turns in advance, that's a big issue for me. I like take it a turn at a time, and then I realize, well, if I had thought it through, then maybe it would have gone a bit better. Excellent.
So we're already starting to see some themes in here, so thank you so much. We've got another question, so keep that page open. We've got 3 of these to do.
Okay, so the next question, when thinking about playing TCGs, what gives you the most satisfaction, motivation, enjoyment, and fulfillment? So any of those 4, any combination of those 4, why do you play them? What do you like about them? And it's okay if your answer is just you like the cards, because that would be my answer.
Okay, so coming up with new combos, awesome.
Good one.
Someone likes the plan going well and getting the victory. Yeah.
Playing cards and comboing. I like it. Confusing people.
I like the shiny cards as well. Yeah. Having a blinged out deck, right?
Yeah.
Showing off to the
We
opponent.
have a son that's all about the shiny cards. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's shiny, he likes it. Awesome.
Okay, yeah, some people like combos in this room, I guess, being able to pull off those combos, nice. And synergy in decks. taking control of an undervalued card or combo. Awesome. So maybe a bit of that underdog type thing coming through. Awesome. So one more question.
Okay. So what do you want people to think about you as a TCG player? So when people come across you in these TCG events, what do you want them to think? Do you want them to feel intimidated, or do you want them to feel like you're friendly? What do you want them to feel or think when you are playing against them?
I really like the first one, that I have a spicy deck. But also that it's fun to play against. Fair and fun to play against, strong competitor, fun to play against. Awesome. I'll give you just a few more seconds on this one. An interesting encounter. Okay. Friendly, good match.
I like those ones when they're friendly and helpful. Confident.
Good. I think that's supposed to say good sport. Also confident in my ability.
Awesome.
Okay, so there's a clear theme coming through here that, you know, when we're playing up against someone, we want them to leave that encounter, you know, that we're friendly, we're fun to play against, which is a nice segue into our topic for today, I think, because we are going to be focusing in on emotions today. Now, has anyone here, let's be honest, been a little bit salty or a little bit maybe rude to our opponents at times? Not intentionally, of course, we'd never intentionally do that, but in the heat of the moment, you think about those competitions, be honest, who here has maybe not been the friendliest to play against? We've got some honest people in here. I love it. Okay. So, what we might be aware of, or what we might not be aware of, is not only can emotions affect how people might view us, but also they can actually affect our performance. So emotions are tied in and interconnected with our brain functioning. So when we're experiencing high levels of emotions, they can actually impact the way that you're focusing in on the board state, for instance, might be impacting your decision making. So we already talked about today, you know, in those high pressure moments, we might start to doubt ourselves. Well, our emotions might be influencing that process as well. So emotions do a lot more than we might necessarily give them credit for. And when it comes to competitive events, we all experience emotions differently. We all have our unique perception of the world that's happening around us. So we might all experience the same moment differently and respond with different emotions to those moments. Now, when it comes to emotions, we tend to put them into categories of positive and negative, but what I actually prefer to put them into is helpful and unhelpful. Now, who here can give me an example of when they've had what we might consider a positive emotion that's been unhelpful for them?
Feeling compassion to another player that does maybe not understand rules, you help him understand it, and then
Okay. So we think, okay, we might have a compassionate moment, so a positive emotion. We might play easy, we might put that phrase that as to allow them to learn the game, and then suddenly out of nowhere they're like an expert and they take that win and we're like, what happened in that moment? And you're like, this is a competitive environment, I should be doing my best to win, but I've been nice, and maybe that's led to me losing that game as a result. Yeah, great example. Any other examples in the room?
Overconfident, kind of feel like you're winning.
Yeah.
Oh, overconfidence.
Don't.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've certainly experienced that as well, where you're like, okay, yeah, this board state is mine. Next turn, I've got that win. And then out of nowhere, it just starts to fall apart. And because you're so confident, you're just like, oh, how do I recover from this moment? You know? Yeah, so maybe we get a little bit too settled into our position. We're happy about where we are in the board state, and then maybe that falls apart. Did you have one?
Getting overly attached to a card or a unit.
Okay, yeah, we play cards because they're cute, right? Yeah, that we love them. We keep them in our deck, and then you draw it in that vital moment, and you go, "Why am I looking at this card right now? That is not going to get me out of this situation." Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Overanalyzing, so like seeing ghosts. That you, for example, you know the full list of another player, and you like think he probably can have this card. And you play around it, and he never even had it.
Yeah.
If you weren't playing around it, you would win, and instead of that, you are in a worse position.
Yeah, so maybe we're in that position where we think, yeah, they have this card. There's no way they don't have this card. They must have kept that in their hand, but then they don't have it. Yeah. And what was your one? Sorry.
Specifically against kids.
Okay.
I don't,
first round, you're against a kid, you're like, I don't want to
Crush their dreams.
Yeah, I might lose anyway, but when you play a kid, you're just like,
Yeah.
I want you to keep playing games.
Yeah.
What if I've done this wrong?
And then you take that to the next level and you play a kid on stream. Yeah, so some great examples there where we might experience positive emotions, but they might not necessarily be what we need in that moment. Let's flip that on its head then. What about, has anyone experienced what we might consider negative emotions that have actually helped you in a moment and helped you perform?
I think on the flip side of your opponent getting overconfident and they just go, oh, this is going really, really badly, they just draw that one thing. It works out in the end.
Yeah, so maybe we're feeling a little bit frustrated, but then we get that card that we need, and you know, that frustration comes through and we're like, yeah, we've got it. Awesome.
Like channeling frustration and anger on like events of last round into like hyper focus, and you know, if you like you know the
Yeah.
line at the moment.
Yeah, so sometimes maybe we have a little bit enough of that frustration from that last game that we take that energy into our next game ready to go, and we have a really great round in the next one.
I
Yeah.
have a good one. If you
Yeah.
have this one player that you just like kind of dislike, and you are
Yeah.
always like so in the zone, when you, like everyone knows what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Hyper focus is like I'm not losing to this stuff.
There's this guy again, yeah. We're going through it. Okay, yeah, so maybe it's certain people that might bring out some negative emotions in us that might motivate us to perform in that moment as well. But of course, there might be times where positive and negative emotions, you know, positive emotions can be helpful. Again, we spoke about confidence already, really key. And then negative emotions, I hope I don't offend anyone here when I say this, you know, if I see a control deck, I'm just like, I get some negative emotions, and then that might be impacting my performance going into that game if I don't control those emotions appropriately. So what we're going to do today is we're going to obviously be talking a little bit about emotions, but also providing you with a skill that maybe you can utilize when you're in that moment to help you bring those emotions back down. So first of all, we need to raise awareness of when we're experiencing emotions. So this is something called an emotion wheel. And what I love about this is it starts to get us to think about not just some basic emotions, but actually some more in-depth emotions that we might not necessarily be aware of, because even if you're not aware of that emotion, doesn't mean you're not experiencing that emotion. And until you're aware of that emotion, you can't start to identify when you're experiencing too much of that emotion to bring those levels back down. So what we're going to do is I've got a nice little activity for us to try. Can I have 2 volunteers from the room to come up to the front? Yep, thank you so much. Come take a seat on one of these chairs, and one more for me. Fantastic. So go ahead and take those golf balls out of their packets when you get up here. Now, what I'd like you to do as you're going through this is to think about what emotions you might be feeling, okay? And audience, we can take a look at the emotion wheel and see if we can start to spot some of the emotions coming through from my participants here, okay? So a nice simple activity for you. It should be nice and easy. We'll get this done in minutes. I would like you to stack those golf balls on top of each other in as a 3. So we're going to stack those golf balls up. A couple of rules: you're not allowed to balance them against anything. You're not allowed to hold them up yourself. They have to be freestanding. And I will give you a few minutes to complete this activity. So let's see what emotions we might be able to spot from my participants here as we go through. And also, yeah, they might change as we go through as well. So think about how that might change as we progress here.
Can you just tell me if it's even possible?
I can tell you it is possible. I've personally done it many times before. So.
Maybe a few times.
Many times. If you would like to move surface, that is totally fine. But again, it has to be freestanding, can't be leaning against anything. Or phone. Interesting.
I'm noticing there's a lot of calmness here. I don't feel any like frustration. Wow.
Wait, you told me it's possible. Surely.
Again, we experience these uniquely, right?
I think there's a lot of hope happening right now.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
We're up to a 2, yeah. Can we get the third one on now?
Oh God. It's stressing me out.
Yeah.
Wow! That's impressive.
Sorry, keep going. Let's see if we can get the second one up.
Oh.
I'll give you 30 more seconds.
There's a lot of pressure there. Look at the emotions right now. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, the audience is keeping track of this, I promise you, yeah.
Going from 0 to 100 in 1 minute.
Okay. What was your name, sorry?
Alex.
Alex and
Toby.
Toby. Thank you so much. Let's give them a clap. Okay, feel free to take your seats again. Okay, so we'll start with the audience. What emotions do we think we noticed from that activity?
I'm assuming a bit of frustration.
Frustration? Yeah.
They're curious a bit first.
Curious, yeah.
It's possible to do it all.
Yeah, there were definitely some curiosity there.
I think there's something to kind of pinpoint on that. They needed to know that it was possible before, like I think you would be a lot more likely to give up if you thought there's no way this is possible, but then to hear, oh, I've done it, maybe I could do it as well.
How did it make you feel when I said many times?
Change the game,
yeah.
If there would be just the tennis table balls,
yeah.
I think that's impossible. You can make it like a little at the end, but since there are golf balls and they have like these little holes, I realized you can probably stack them on these holes. That's like the way to do it, but I needed to have like a blank space underneath because the table was a little bit crooked.
Yeah. So how did your emotions change after you realized that?
I went way calmer, and I actually started thinking more of a solutions than like trial and error approach. And I kind of started to get creative with that. Like I found maybe I can take my phone and just stack it on it. That would be easier than on the table.
Yeah.
I think the table is the problem.
Yeah. So again, linking that back to what I mentioned previously, emotions are tied into our brain functioning. So when we're able to control those emotions a little bit better, you're able to look for solutions rather than maybe getting frustrated in that moment. Did anyone notice how emotions shifted across that activity? Did anyone notice some changes? Yeah, go for it, Toby.
I started off thinking you were doing a bit of a trick on me.
So how did that make you feel?
Well, amused.
Amused, okay.
And then as it went on, I was like, okay, so it definitely is possible. It goes and shows it. And then the first one, I'm like, okay. But then at that point, I'm like, I'm not sure I can manage to say the third one.
Okay, yeah. What about when Alex finished his, when you saw him finish his, what emotions did you feel then?
I was like, oh, nice.
Okay, yeah.
Impressed,
Impressed, yeah.
Not any more hopeful.
Yeah, okay. So maybe impressed for Alex, but still maybe not so hopeful for yourself in terms of completing that activity. Any other thoughts on what emotions we found there?
And obviously when Alex completed the 3-stack, he was overjoyed.
Overjoyed.
I
Yeah.
was also rooting for Toby to finish this one, but I thought like it would be hard with the crooked table, so I was also like, okay,
Yeah.
find a trick.
Yeah. Fair enough. Awesome. So great. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking part in that activity. As we've gone through that, is there any emotions on here that maybe we're not too familiar with that we're like clarifying, or anything that stands out for you?
It is quite small.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was just so surprised how there seem to be more negative emotions than there do to be positive ones, unless it's just the way that.
And,
Yeah. As humans, we're typically inclined to, unfortunately, look more towards negative than positive, and it takes a little bit of training to try and shift our thinking to more positive.
I'm sure
Yeah.
because coming from like a cognitive science field and stuff.
Yeah, so I'm a sports psychologist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it like an evolutionary thing that like negative emotions kind of like make you more present in the situation or like more useful, to say like atavistically?
Yeah.
Positive emotions kind of like enforce positive things, so they are like not that important as negative emotions.
Yeah, so if you think about developmentally from like evolution and stuff, we used to be, wilderness people out in the wild, and we would need those negative responses to activate our nervous system and go into that fight or flight response. So that's why we're more inclined to see negative things happening in our environment. But obviously in the modern day and age, most of the time we don't need to quickly move into that fight or flight response. So unfortunately we've not caught up in terms of trying to experience more of those positive emotions compared to the negative emotions. So that's the reason why negative emotions that we're inclined to feel more often. Yeah, great question. Yeah, does anyone have any
I think
thoughts or
it's
comments on that?
interesting that numbed, withdrawn, and distant is in the angry section.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so again, we have our unique experiences with these, and some of us might experience more of those angry symptoms or emotions differently. Does anyone in this room like go numb when they feel angry, just out of curiosity to share their experience? Yeah, Alex, how would you describe that?
I try to just like zone off when I'm angry, because
Yeah.
I luckily don't have that much of an anger issue, but I have some other friends that have, and they are like very intense with their anger outbursts.
Yeah.
But when I'm like angry or sad, I sometimes just like to be numb.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of self-medication.
Yeah.
I'm a very non-confrontational person, so when I'm angry, I just withdraw. I just like ignore everyone, and I just kind of pull in myself, because the thought of having to confront someone about my anger scares me even more. So I just kind of pull back, you know.
I wouldn't say it's more from being like angry, but more in like a really difficult session. For example, like me and my girl, we are like really intense characters, and so when we have like a fight, sometimes it's like something that goes really, really hard, and sometimes I get numb in the situation because I feel like every response I tried wasn't yielding any good results. So then I just like kind of shut off, and I'm not even like talking. I'm not responding to even like really intense intense things that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. And that's the reason why we want to go a little bit more in depth than, our basic angry, happy, sad emotions. We want to raise awareness of when we might be experiencing these different emotions, and bring awareness to that, because like I mentioned earlier, if we're not aware of some of these emotions happening, then we're not able to effectively deal with them, which leads me nicely into our next slide. So what we want to do is, when we recognize these unhelpful emotions starting to come up, is to be able to handle them before they get too much. And a way that I like to represent that is through the use of a balloon. Okay, so I'm going to start blowing up this balloon, and we'll pretend that these are some emotions that I'm experiencing right now in this session. Okay, so a nice small balloon at the moment, so maybe this is in the helpful stage right now. But what would happen if I continued to put air into this balloon? It'd get bigger, right? Yeah. Now maybe it starts to reach the point where it's unhelpful, okay? And this is where I want to let some air out, right? I want to let go of some of the emotions to be able to get back to a helpful state, so that I can perform effectively in that moment. But let's say I'm not aware of this emotion happening, and I let it continue to blow up. What would happen if I continue to put air in this balloon?
Blow up.
It would burst, right? So regardless of what emotion it is, if we do not address it in time, then eventually it has to come out in some way, and that's where you might have some kind of outburst. And you might see that in TCGs where someone flips the table, and you've got your cards and your counters everywhere. But but no.
I don't know which video.
So it has to come out in some way. So that's where we would use mental skills to bring those emotions back down. So Brittany's going to go ahead and lead an activity.
So a helpful way to deal with your emotions is to do some deep breathing. It helps calm yourself down and kind of work through the emotions. But when you're deep breathing, and it's actually funny because I was speaking with my brother-in-law about this, and if you're a performer, they say to breathe in your belly, right? To really ground your breath. But in this instance, you actually want to breathe in your lungs. So when you're deep breathing, your belly shouldn't move at all. You should be bringing all of the air into your lungs. And when you're breathing in, you should breathe in for maybe 3 to 4 counts, and then your breath out should be slightly longer than breathing in to kind of help you calm down. So we're going to try it. So everyone, put your hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. So you should feel the air coming in here, not here. Yeah? So your hand here should stay the same. So take a breath in for about 3 or 4 counts. Now breathe out. Now I want you to pay attention for a moment to how you feel now. I mean, even if you're not in that overwhelmed state or that angry state, pay attention to how you feel. So we'll try it one more time. I just want you to think about how you're feeling. Even if you're already calm, hopefully you feel even calmer, okay? So one more time, breathe in, breathe out. And obviously, when you're in a game, You might not put your hand on your chest and your hand on your tummy. That looks a little funny, right? But it's a really good quick skill, and it's so funny because it's one of those things that you think, well, I already know that. Sometimes we forget that. So if you're feeling that, you can just take a quick breath in, making sure that your breath out is slightly longer. That's what helps calm you down a bit and helps you work through some of those emotions, and you can get rid of some of those emotions that aren't going to help you in the game. Yeah.
Why not into belly?
That's a really good question for him.
So we want to fill up our diaphragm, right? We want to take a nice deep breath in. We don't want to fill up our belly, right? So we want to fill up the whole diaphragm, fill up our lungs fully before letting that air go. So by being intentional on where we're bringing that breath in, we can really fill our lungs up, and then our exhale allows us to calm ourselves down, let those emotions out, and bring ourselves back to that calmer state. Yeah.
Why does it actually calm you down?
Great question. So our biological side is linked to our psychological side. So when it comes to doing something like a deep breath, what we're doing is we're slowing down not just things like our heart rate that might be going in that moment, but also we're allowing our brain to almost relax in that moment. We're allowing it to calm, to reduce whatever emotion is going on, and just bring ourselves back to a neutral state. So it's really a connection between our physical side and our psychological side as well.
So
Yeah.
like if you do it incorrectly, you would like breathe longer than you exhale, so like hyperventilating, it actually works the opposite way, right?
Yeah, so what we want to do is that exhale should be longer than the inhale. So it doesn't really matter how long, as long as it's a deep breath, but I would typically say something like 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, so that you know that the exhale is going to be longer than the
So you
inhale.
learned about like deep breathing to like calm you down.
Yeah.
I was doing it wrong for like some time. So it's like deep breathing but not exhaling long enough, and that was actually, it was counterproductive.
Yeah.
More
So
oxygen in the brain was going
on the reverse, if you're feeling too relaxed and you want to psych yourself up for a tournament, yes, you would go for the opposite. The inhale would be longer than the exhale, which is actually a strategy you could use if you wanted to
That's when I'm
bring
playing
your
aggro.
yeah. If you're playing aggro, you need to get that going. So yeah. When do we think we might be able to utilize this skill, in a TCG competition? What moments could we implement it?
Maybe if we're on the back foot in the game, we just need to recenter, think of a plan.
Yeah, definitely. So that's a great time when emotions might be coming through, right? We're on the back foot. And I don't know about everyone else, but I was recently in a tournament and I was in like the key round to make top cut, and it was like I'd lost the first game and this was like a key moment in the second game, and I was trying to make the right decision, and my opponent, fair play on trying to catch slow pay, but those comments on, you gonna make a decision? Are you going yet? And I didn't center myself, I didn't do any deep breathing or anything like that. Rushed to make that decision, wrong decision, lost the game, right? So those are the kinds of moments where, make sure you take that time to slow yourself down so that we can think clearly in those moments and allow us to work through. So great example there. When else might we be able to use a skill like this?
Or if you go to time,
Yeah.
you only have 2 more turns,
Yeah.
then it's over.
Yeah.
Actually, when you go to time, you can actually make the breathe because
Exactly.
you have some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, like not being like a bad sport and overusing I don't know about other games, but in Magic it's 5 rounds actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so the time's been called now. Now you've got a set end to what's happening. We might feel rushed to try and get that going quickly to finish the game, but yeah, that might be a good time to slow ourselves down, make sure that we're dealing with any emotions that might be coming at, because those are key moments of the game, right?
Maybe also when you're stressed because there are like too many people around, and you
Yeah.
call the judge to ask people to leave, and then you can call yourself.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, again, if you're one of the last games still playing, you start to see those people coming, what's going on over here? What decks have been played? So yeah, perfect. So those are some times when we might be able to start implementing, this deep breathing. So let's go on to another activity. Can I have 2 more volunteers? Oh, wrong. I jumped ahead. 2 more volunteers and we can, yeah, awesome.
Perfect. This is a fun one.
Okay, so who wants to be my hoop holder? Yeah, okay, so just stand as far as this side as you can. Yep, and you are going to blow some Paw Patrol bubbles for me. You're going to start on that side of the room, okay? So what I'd like you to do is blow a bubble, or blow some bubbles, pick one, and you're going to try and use your breath to blow that bubble all the way across the room and through this hoop. Okay?
Wow.
So,
Noticing some emotions already.
okay, yeah, let's see it.
Oh, that's going too far.
No.
It's gonna get eaten by the end.
Okay, so if it pops, you need to go right back to the start and start from there.
Is this one doable?
It is, yeah. I did not consider the AC, but we'll find out. I believe.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh no.
Okay, so we did select this one and it has popped, so I need to ask you to go back to the start. But before I do, did anyone notice anything? What was your name, sorry?
Rob.
Did anyone notice anything about Rob's breathing in that? What did it look like? Okay, I noticed that it was quite short, quick breaths to try and keep it up. What I want you to try and do this time, practice that deep breathing, try slower, longer breaths to try and keep that bubble up. Do you reckon you can give that a go for me?
Do you think there is AC?
That's okay, we'll try again. Okay, we'll give it one more go. Okay. Thank you so much, Rob. Let's give him a round of applause. What was your name again? Eloise, and Eloise as well. Thank you, Eloise. Okay, awesome. So, sometimes we try these activities and they don't work as planned. That's okay. It just goes back to showing we need to practice these skills in order to utilize them most effectively. But Rob, that was a great attempt, and I've never seen someone blow such large bubbles in my life, so I'm really, really impressed with the scale of those bubbles. But yeah, thank you so much. So when it comes to deep breathing, the bubbles are a good representation of in certain situations where we might feel rushed, we might not take the time to actually take care in how we're breathing and focusing on our breathing, but rather what we actually need to do. So if we focus too much on trying to get the bubble to the hoop, then we might do those shorter breaths and it might result in them popping. And then if we take the deeper breaths, we can slow it down, feel less rushed about it, and hopefully eventually get that bubble over to the hoop. I'd love to have continued that activity for longer, but obviously we're on quite a tight time frame in here. We've got another session coming in at 11, so I want to make sure that we give them that space. So thank you all so much for turning up today. I hope you found that really beneficial. As part of turning up today, I'd love to share a free guide that I've put together. So emotions were just one aspect of our findings within the study. This is a 30-page guide that covers a little bit more. It's a self-writing guide, so there's some activities in there for you to complete and lots of information on how you can utilize different mental skills to support you in competitive TCG environments. But I want to use the last 5 or 10 minutes or so to answer any questions, or if anyone has any comments they would like to add, feel free to bring them up now.